The United States' days as a hegemonic power are almost finished. I'm going to tell you as a American, so to my fellow Americans out there, this is the best thing that could ever happen to us. But first, I want to welcome you to RubenTek, where we discuss the intersection of tech, politics, and finance. If you'd like to take a moment right now and hit the like and subscribe, we would greatly appreciate that. Also, if you can support us further, we have memberships available for the price of a cup of coffee. But now I'm going to get into a rant here, okay? Whenever I do scripts, people don't like it, so I have a lot of words I'm going to spit out quickly about why I believe what I said at the beginning, despite the fact that Israel, who is backed by the U.S., just launched more illegal actions, an illegal attack into Iran. Yes, I know that Israel is the most belligerent, warmongering nation on the face of earth, okay? They are run by a fascist government that is religious nut jobs. Basically, I think they're living 3,000 or 4,000 years ago, and that a collection of stories gives them the right to attack anyone. That and the fact that they are backed by the United States military-industrial complex, which just absolutely loves Israel, because they get to send Israel tens of billions of dollars, if not hundreds of billions of dollars, of weapons and ammunition every single year. And they know that Israel is going to use all of them, because Israel literally attacks everyone around it at all times with no fear of consequences. You might say, well, wait a second. The ICC just issued arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu and for his defense minister. Sorry, I forgot his name right now. But the thing is those warrants are teethless, because the United States only recognizes the ICC when it's convenient for it. Okay, so i.e. the ICC rules against Putin, the United States will reference it and say, hey, look at this. But the ICC issues warrants against Netanyahu and his defense minister for war crimes in Gaza. The United States is like, oh, no, that's not right, okay? And in fact, some people in Netanyahu's government called the arrest warrants, they called them anti-Semitic, even though that the panel that recommended to the ICC to pursue these arrest warrants was led by a 94-year-old Holocaust survivor who used to be a government official of Israel. Okay, so just imagine that you used to be a government official of Israel. When you were a small child, you escaped the Nazis, you survived the Nazis, and then you see genocide happening. And you go ahead and you recommend arrest warrants against the people who are doing it. And these fascist, warmongering clowns call you an anti-Semite, you know. That's just, I mean, that's absolutely nuts. That's the world we live in nowadays. But of course, we know that Israel just uses that term for anybody that disagrees with them, right? So if you hate genocide, you're an anti-Semite. That's basically what it is right now. It doesn't matter if you're Jewish or not. It's just a simple fact. You could be Jewish, you hate genocide, then you're an anti-Semite. But anyways, going on. So the U.S. has this weird relationship with Israel, because the United States is run by the military-industrial complex. If you don't believe me, look to President Dwight Eisenhower some 70 years ago when he talked about this, right? He warned us against this. It's obvious. We saw how the war in Iraq and enriching people like Dick Cheney, spending trillions of dollars of American taxpayer money, costing tens of thousands of lives of our servicemen, right? Killing 1 million innocent civilians in these countries, also that the military-industrial complex could keep doing what it's doing, which is funneling money to a few individuals. And that's been the MO in America for 50, 60 years, is to take all the American wealth. We built this tremendous and great nation. And yes, this is still absolutely a tremendous and great nation. But for 50, 60 years, we've been taking everything we built as a nation and been funneling it just to a few people at the top. This is in stark contrast to China, who over the last 50 years has lifted hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. They have connected up to tens of thousands of kilometers of high-speed rail. They have been building airports. They have been investing in the world's largest and most robust and cleanest energy infrastructure for a large country. Yes, I know in Paraguay you have 100% hydroelectric, but you're also a small country. I'm talking about countries with people more than 100 million people, okay? China has been investing into its own infrastructure. And am I saying that they're better than the United States? They are in some aspects, but they aren't in others. But what I'm saying is that the United States can't just keep coasting anymore. And that's why I believe us ending as a hegemonic power, us ending the fact that we're like, hey, let's just keep giving all the money to the military industrial complex and to a few rich people, and let's focus on ourselves. This very well finally could happen. And you might say, well, Ruben, how are you saying this could happen? Because for the first time ever, we saw that Trump was like, no, we don't want to go to war with Iran. Israel did it anyways to force his hand. Trump, of course, bought and paid for by Israel and their allies in the Middle East, by the military industrial complex, all of a sudden changed his tune, even though you know he wanted a deal because the guy just likes deals. He doesn't even care what's in the deal. He doesn't even know what's going to be in a deal. He just wants a deal. Okay? But he quickly changed his tune. He's like, oh, wait, I owe all these people favors. They've given me billions of dollars. But guess what happened? We saw a fracture in MAGA. All of a sudden, all these MAGA crazies, Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, trying to think of her name, Candace Owen, all these MAGA crazies, Charlie Kirk on his Twitter, right? He's talking to his people. He's still a MAGA crazy, but all these MAGA crazies, they were like, hey, you know what? We don't want this war. We don't want another endless war. What does Iran have to do with us? We've been told for 30 plus years Iran's on the verge of getting a nuclear weapon. We don't want to get into another endless conflict. And this is a problem for Israel because you see in Israel, they don't want to get into an endless conflict. The Israeli citizen right now has a problem. They have these religious conservative nut jobs, okay, who are saying our kids, Torah says my son doesn't have to be in the military and my daughter doesn't have to be in the military. We're not fighting in the military. And Bibi, you're like us, right? We believe in Torah like you, and we believe God mandates all these things, but he mandates it for these other Israeli citizens over here. And the other Israeli citizens who may be religious, but they're not nut jobs, or they may be nut jobs, but they're not religious. They're saying, wait a second, if you're not going to fight, why are we going to fight? Why are our sons and daughters going to fight? And you might look at me and say, Ruben, they're fighting in Gaza. They're not fighting in Gaza. Who are they fighting against in Gaza? In Gaza, they're luring starving women and children like cattle into these cattle corrals to aid stations, and they're shooting at them to disperse them with 50 caliber machine gun fire, committing war crimes, okay? And of course, the United States is like, just investigate yourself. Oh, we investigated ourselves when we found out that those women and children had diapers and baby formula. And the IDF was worried because you know how vicious an assault women and children can launch on tanks and soldiers with baby formula and diapers. And the U.S. was like, absolutely, we know that. You are cleared of all wrongdoing. No wrongdoing. Okay? But they have a problem because these people are like, now we attacked Iran. And yes, you know what? Probably with all the tens and hundreds of billions of dollars of weapons that's sent to Israel, and with the Americans' intelligence assistance, yes, Israel probably could beat Iran in a war. And if you're, for Iran out there, sorry to say that, but it's probably true. But the simple fact is Iran can fight back. And now the average Israeli citizen is like, wait a second. We're not used to someone that can actually fight back. We just fire indiscriminately into Jordan, into Syria, into every country around us against people who can't fight back. We just wage war against people who can't fight back. We don't want someone who can't fight back. We don't want our people to die. Who can die in place of us? Oh, we know. The stupid Americans who we own. They're our vassal state. And so their defense minister even said that. He said, America has an obligation to defend Israel against Iran, meaning sending troops over there. And so now MAGA is absolutely fracturing. They're like, wait a second. And now when I say it's MAGA thought leaders, not MAGA. MAGA doesn't have a thought. MAGA is only told what to do. Okay? But MAGA thought leaders are like, wait a second. Why do we want to send the sons and daughters of our MAGA morons over to die for Israel? We should be using them for us, okay? Don't think they're doing it because they actually care about the MAGA morons. They're doing it because they're just like, hey, we don't want to get in another endless war that benefits only a few people, right? And kills these people. Let's use these people for us, right? But this is still a fracturing. This is still a fracturing. And so here you have the United States, as of right now, hasn't committed to sending troops, hasn't committed to this war, which is an absolute good thing. And it's a sign of the hegemonic powers of the United States starting to wane, of the fact that our unilateral actions may not be working as well anymore. And we're seeing this in economic warfare. Remember, on this channel, we've been talking about this nonstop. China immediately stood up to the United States with the economic warfare and said, you know what? We will suffer pain, but you will also. And if you want to decouple, we're going to decouple. We have principles. You do not. Here's our principles. First of all, treat each other with respect. It's funny they have to say that, but they're dealing with children and clowns, so they have to. 2, mutually beneficial cooperation. I.e., this isn't a zero-sum game. If you want to deal with us, we both have to benefit from it. And 3, respect the sovereignty. We're not your lapdogs. Okay? When we deal with someone, we respect their sovereignty. And so they walked away from the trading table, and the U.S. was like first to fold. We've covered that many times. Okay? And this emboldened other nations to grow a little bit of a spine. And now you even see the G7. It's kind of like, what is going on here? Whenever you hear about people trading with the U.S. outside of the U.S., you hear about it, right? So let's just say in these trade negotiations, you hear other countries reporting on how their side's going. They're always like, we don't know what the Americans want. One day they say they want X. Okay, what happens if we agree to X? The next day they say, no, we don't want X, we want Y. Okay, what happens if we agree to Y? And then the day after that, they say, no, we don't want Y, we want Z. And of course we know this in America because Donald Trump and his clown show administration, they can't even tell us what they want. Scott Basin saying, hey, we want, GDP to debt to be 6%, we want 5%, we want 4%. We don't want inflation. Oh, we're going to have to suffer a little bit of inflation. They literally change their mind on a whim because they're led by a guy who has no idea about anything. He Taco Trump, Taco Tuesday, okay, changes his mind on a 3 a.m. tweet. And the G7 is finally starting to say, hey, we've had enough of this. Are you our allies or not? We just have to have something. We have to know one thing. Are you our allies or not? Just come out and tell us. Right? They're starting to ask this. And we even see Japan, who right now is on the brink of some serious economic pain and desperately needs a trade deal with America. We even see them standing up to America because they understand that it's better to suffer some economic pain than to be under the thumb of a madman. So even they are standing up. And they're in some dire straits right now. And you can see that maybe some people in G7 are starting to look and say, look at Japan, look at China. Maybe we can stand up too. Maybe we don't have to go along with this. Maybe short-term pain is better than being under this crazy instability. And then, of course, we're seeing fractures in ASEAN. When I covered that speech from Hegseth, where he went and he talked down to the members of ASEAN. China wasn't there that day at the Shangri-La conference in Singapore. A few weeks ago, June 2nd, I believe. He's talking down to all of them, telling them that the United States is an Indo-Pacific nation because we have Hawaii thousands of miles away in the Pacific. We're an Indo-Pacific nation, and that our vision, America's vision, is the Indo-Pacific vision. Letting them know that, hey, we control your vision. And then flat out telling them that their trade relationships with China could cause an issue if the United States wants to use them as a proxy in a war against China. Flat out said that. And of course, you have countries over there like the Philippines that's like, yes, look at Ukraine. We want to be a proxy for America. Look at what happens to these countries that are proxies for America in wars. They always do so well. Look at Ukraine, as it's absolutely devastated. And even if it comes out of this war somewhat intact, it's going to go own America, its soul. Okay, as we took, got this great deal for all these raw, rare earths and minerals. First dibs. Okay. Yes, we want to be like Ukraine. Or they can say, hey, maybe it's time to start building even stronger relationships with China. And guess what? Last month's data shows that China exports to ASEAN nations has increased. China's exports to BRICS nations has increased. People are starting to look at the SWIFT system, which was a great invention if somebody would wield it fairly. But they're starting to say, why do we want to be sanctioned? Why do we want to have the ability to be sanctioned? And so all the world's central reserves have been buying gold like crazy, which is why silver isn't going up. People always like, why isn't silver going up in correlation with gold? Well, because silver is bought by consumers. Gold is purchased by central banks, and by consumers. And right now, central banks are buying. For example, China is buying tons and tons of gold because they're de-dollarizing. So that's an offshoot in case you're wondering why silver hasn't really, they've had some small moves, but they haven't participated in this huge rally that gold has. It's because China and all these other nations, they're buying gold. They don't buy silver. I'm not saying they don't buy any silver, but they don't buy as much as they do gold. Gold's more of a store of value, a better store of value over the long term. So we're seeing people look at SWIFT and saying, hey, why do I want to be in this system where my assets can get frozen at any time? Why do I want to be in a system where I can be sanctioned? And it sounds like, from what I've heard from other reporting stations, that even European nations now are saying we don't want to deal in dollars. If we can, if we are able, we will deal in our local currencies. I.e., if you're in France and you're dealing with someone outside the US, let's deal in our national currency. And this is a huge problem for America as being the world's policeman. Now, I've said all this stuff. Why? I've said all this bad stuff, okay? So if you're my fellow American, you might say, why would this be good for us? Because I talk about at the beginning, yes, I talk about how China's doing all these good things. Well, guess what? We can start doing this stuff too. Because we still have a great nation here. But we have to keep it up. Education can't be a bad thing. We can't have a clown and Linda McMahon running our education department when you have a country like China that is emphasizing education, that has over half of the top AI researchers in the world coming out of China. We need to prioritize education also. And it's not because we're competing against China like it's a zero-sum situation, but because we are competing in a situation where we want to make each other better, which is how competition is supposed to be. It's not zero-sum like in the 90s with Michael Jordan. I know a lot of Americans love that. And these old hats, they don't like the days now because they're like, oh, these guys are friends. Well, that's not a bad thing. Okay, because if I take my friend out there, we're competing against each other. We don't have to hate each other. We go out there, we play tennis, and we make each other better. And we keep getting better. And we compete as hard as we can, but we don't hate each other. We're not trying to hurt each other. And we just keep making each other better. We keep refining each other and improving each other. And that's what America needs to participate in, but it's not. Instead, it's trying to participate in casting fear and doubt in the rest of the world while letting its own nation just stripping everything out of the middle class, stomping on the middle class. And so if that middle class wakes up and says, you know what? Now I'm going to touch on something I rarely touch on here, Ukraine. okay? But they just say, hey, you know what happens in Ukraine isn't our business. And I know if you're Ukrainian, you might hate to hear me say that. And I apologize, okay? Because I feel for you, the Ukrainian person, but the simple fact is I'm American. And what happens in Ukraine, it isn't the threat like the Nazis. People are like, Russia's going to keep marching on and build the old Soviet Union. Are they? How many military bases does Russia have surrounding America? None. How many military bases does the United States have surrounding Russia? Hundreds. Okay? So I may be wrong on this, but you tell me if I'm wrong. America needs to start focusing on America. And by focusing on America and bringing ourselves back into the world competition on the stage, investing in education, investing in roads, investing in infrastructure, investing in our middle class, investing in healthcare of our people. For the first time, an average American citizen lifespan is starting to go down, for God's sake. Is going down. I mean, we got some problems here. Why don't we want to take care of these problems? And if we start investing in these things, not only will it make America better, not only will my children live a better life than I do, and your children, if you're America, live a better life than you do, but maybe your grandchildren will also. And maybe America will still be around. Because if we keep going down the road we are, I doubt that America is going to be around. How is it going to remain around if we just keep giving all of the wealth to a few individuals? How? There's going to be nothing left. You're going to have a few percentage of people controlling literally everything. And if you don't believe me, listen to Basement right now. Remember where I told you from Clear Value Tax, he laid it out crystal clear. And I said, if you watch anything, it's important to watch this guy because what he said here is 100% correct. The only way out of this deficit problem is to explode this economy with inflation. That's the only way out of it. Okay? But guess what that's going to do? Those who already own everything are going to get richer, and those who own nothing are going to get poorer. Okay? That's simply put what's going to happen. And now we have Basin saying that. That's why they want to get rid of Powell. They need someone to run this economy as hot as possible. Basin's like, my GDP, I want it down to 4% now. 4 freaking percent. Debt to the GDP each year, not total debt. Sorry. That is impossible. That's what Elon Musk was saying when he realized you can't cut anything. There's nothing to be cut here because everybody wants everything, and we want to spend $1 trillion on the military, which wiped out all of his savings that he imaginarily had, which I don't even think he had. But if he did have them, it were all wiped out by that $1 trillion sent to the military. Okay? So how is Basin going to do this? How? He's going to do it through inflation. Through massive, massive inflation. That's the only way it's going to happen. And so understand again, in inflation, everybody who owns things, those who own everything are going to get richer because assets go up. And what happens to the dollar? Those who hold cash get crushed. Or those who don't have either get crushed. And since the majority of this nation's wealth is held by a few individuals, they're going to own even more. And the rest of us are going to get completely left behind. So this can change, but it needs to happen. People need to actually realize, they need to understand that it's not about them. It's about their children and their grandchildren. Because America is a great nation, but you can't keep coasting forever. Because bad things are coming. The piper is going to have to be paid. And I see a glimmer of hope here. I really do. In the MAGA rebellion against this war, I see a glimmer of hope. In the ASEAN increasing their relationship with China and trade, I see a glimmer of hope. And the G7 flat out asking if America can at least say it's its ally, I see a glimmer of hope. I see a glimmer of hope in Japan. And again, those of you who think a United States acting as a hegemonic power is a good thing, you are wrong. It's not. It has not benefited you or me. And we can look at the 50 years, 60 years of economic data that proves it such. And if you say you're a billionaire, then one, why are you watching my channel? Okay, I'm a guy in a freaking pit right now. And two, then yes, it does improve your life. Okay, fine. It improves your life. You're one of the few billionaires that controls the majority of this country, then yes, this does improve your life. Okay. But for the 330 some million of us out there that aren't part of that 1%, it doesn't benefit us. Okay, so that's what I got for you guys today. You can let me know. I covered a lot, talked fast, covered a lot. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I way off? Hopefully, when I say some of these things, I always say stuff, people will be like, oh, you support Putin, oh, blah, blah. No, you know what? I don't support, when I say these things, it's not like I'm for or against somebody, right? I'm saying things realistically. I'm an American. I would like to focus on America. And I think by us focusing on America, it will help America. I know it sounds like a crazy thing, but I do believe by Americans focusing on America, it will actually help America. It's this weird thought. Because for some reason, Americans are like, hey, we focus on Ukraine. If we focus on Iran, right? We focus on Colombia. We put all of our focus everywhere but America. It'll help America. No, I'm telling you, we need to focus on America for a while. And the thing's here. We need to focus on our middle class, making them great again. Make us great again. My philosophy, I call it MUGa. Make us great again. And I promise you, rest of the world, by the American middle class making us great again, it will make you great again. Because the only way that happens is if America stops policing everyone. And yeah, I know some countries might have some pain for who we police for, but I think in the long run, you will all be better. Even those countries who think that they're doing better with the U.S. influence them. So even the Philippines and Ukraine, as hard as it is for me to say this right now, because, I look at Ukraine, I would not want to be invaded, right? But what are you going to get from being America's proxy the rest of your life? I don't know. Neither here or there. Okay, guys, that's what I got for you today. Be sure to hit like and subscribe down below. Let me know if I'm wrong. I know you all will. Have a great day.